From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? Coming to you from the Midtown Studios. It survived because obviously I was here yesterday talking about things. Corey's here as well. Corey, did you see all the? Did you see that one tree?
I did, man. I did.
Man, I don't know what to do because that's just like an empty lot. So do I call the city and tell them, yo, there's an empty lot next to me with a tree down? You want to go grab that?
I guess so, yeah.
I don't know what the address is. But, yeah, we're here. We're doing all right. First off, don't forget, folks, Game Day Excursions. Check them out, GameDayExcursions.com. If you're going to go to the Notre Dame game, there's no better way to go to the Notre Dame game than to use Game Day Excursions. Check them out, GameDayExcursions.com. You're not going, right, Corey? I'm going.
You are going. I'm not.
I won that Battle Royale arm wrestling contest that you and Ira had.
Correct.
Myself a few weeks back.
Correct.
Over the top. It's like a switch. It's like turn the hat.
Yeah, it's like a switch, yep.
Over the top.
A little over the top.
All right, we got to speak to Willie.
Meet me halfway.
Yeah.
Across the sky. Yeah, that's probably Loggins' best song, right?
Probably. We got to speak to the head football coach of the Florida State Seminoles on Monday, Willie Taggart. We do this every Tuesday, Corey. What did we learn? What do we know? What did you hear?
Well, for the most important thing, honestly, is let's hope something can be done for Denarius Robinson and his family. That's really kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Willie said that he's still in Panama City. He expects them back for Saturday, but they lost their home. I mean, their home's gone. And there was an image that somebody put on Twitter about him rummaging through the stuff in the yard to try to find personal effects that he could take with him. But the house is done, and so he's with his mom. They're trying to reset and regroup and kind of restart their lives. I mean, you just no lives were lost, but man, imagine your childhood home or where your parents live now just being gone. It's just heartbreaking. So I don't know what Florida State can do from an NCAA bylaw standpoint for one of their student athletes.
They're working alongside the.
On Monday they met. Right? We hope that they came up with something that can be done. I don't know if they can sponsor a GoFundMe. I don't know if that's even allowed per NCAA laws to have a GoFundMe for a current student athlete. But you just hope something can be done because that's just it's heart-wrenching to see that kind of stuff. And as Willie said, not that we needed anybody to remind us where football stacks on the priority of life, but it's football and life happens and bad things happen and everybody's still listening to this. I know there's a lot of people that still listen to this that are still trying to get their lives back in order after less than a week. So. Just know that everything we say in the next coming days and weeks, that's always in the back of our minds. That's not going anywhere. We know that people are still really struggling. Well said. that was the first thing that Willie talked about was, thinking about the people, the condolences, sending out condolences to people that were affected. And then he talked about some football stuff too.
We did. Oh, real quick though. I was actually thinking about this when he was mentioning Denarius and what his family's having to go through. Remember Ethan Frith? Did they ever make any sort of announcement on Ethan Frith no longer being with the team? He didn't exhaust his eligibility, did he?
I don't know.
He just straight up all of a sudden wasn't on the roster one day. I don't think we even ever asked the question. But I remember his house burnt down, I want to say. Yeah. And they had to GoFundMe for him.
They did have a GoFundMe, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully.
I guess technically you could have one for your mom could start a GoFundMe and people could do. I mean, that's not, excessive benefits, you wouldn't think, but who knows? With the NCAA, who knows, my man?
Yeah. Well, Taggart's got a whole bunch of guys in that support staff, part of the operation, so I imagine they're probably going to work pretty closely and try to figure that out so that, Denarius and his family get back off the ground and back up and running. But to football, so we go to Wake Forest now. Did we talk a lot about football? I don't even know what we talked about. I mean, what do we
at the press conference? You mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Dickerson might. It sort of seems like there's a chance he's not playing again this season.
Well, hey man, when you can get 60 good minutes for Louisville, I mean, sometimes you just have to go ahead and
get that win. Hey, that might have been their last win of the
season.
One
in the hand
could have been their last win of the season.
Better than
man.
Two in the bush,
right?
That sounds very unencouraging. That
the way he was didn't sound like he expects him back anytime soon. Maybe he can be back. Maybe they'll try to get a sixth year for the guy. I don't know. I mean, I know he's only a sophomore, but
Right.
looking ahead, maybe they can feel like this could be another red shirt. The guy just can't stay healthy. And, it's not fair to him. Well, it is fair. I mean, that's just life. Moving forward, you're going to start next season. No matter how Landon Dickerson finishes out this year, you're going to start next season with him penciled in at left tackle or one of the positions on the starting five, probably left tackle. But going into the season, there's a decent chance he ain't finishing it. I mean, and that doesn't mean he's weak. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a pain tolerance. Just some people, their bodies are a little more injury prone than others, and in that position especially, I don't know how you can go into next season counting on Landon Dickerson, because this is the third year in a row where he's had essentially either basically a season-ending injury 3 years in a row, 3 different kind of injuries too, if I remember correctly. So it's like it kind of reminds me of Devin Travis. Devin Travis was a fantastic college baseball player, but he was only drafted in like the 11th round because teams had worries about his body. Not that he didn't take care of himself and didn't try and didn't work out. He's just sometimes some kids' bodies are more prone to injuries, and we've seen that at the major league level. Like, he's had a nice career at the major league level, but he can't stay healthy for long stretches, and it seems like Landon Dickerson might be one of those guys too, where it's just hard for him to stay on the field.
Well, I think with him, it's not so much like a structural thing; it's just the maintenance of the injury. Because
yeah.
I mean, I think what they're saying, well, not what they actually. I don't think we can talk about it, the whole HIPAA stuff. But yeah, it's rather unfortunate because again, he's the best offensive lineman on that team. I mean, Taggart, I think Greg Fry maybe even said as much in the preseason and even leading up to the Louisville game and the last time they were able to use him. So the fact that he's not going to be available. I don't know, though. I mean, whoever they had out against Miami, I felt like played good enough. I think that offensive line played good enough to beat Miami. Now, what is that saying? Good enough to beat Miami? How good is Miami? Beating Miami, what does that mean? But you would think that it's at least good enough to get you 3 more wins.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about this schedule a lot, though. Clemson, by the way, a noon game.
Woo!
So we looked it up. We believe if our crack research staff of Aslan and Corey looked it up correctly, it's the first time since 1994 they played Clemson at home at noon. Mm-hmm. In fact, they've only done it twice. 93 was the other time. 93 they beat Clemson at noon. They played them at noon, beat them 57-0.
Yeah.
The next year they played them at noon, beat them 17-0.
The good old days when you didn't have to do home and home. You could just,
really weird, right?
Just go ahead
They
and
were on
play
the
2 years
road
in
in
a row.
92, and then they got to play Clemson 2 years in a row in 93 and 94 at home. That's weird how the ACC did that. But anyway, so, if that trend continues, look for Florida State to beat Clemson somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30-0.
Okay, very good.
So Clemson doesn't score here when they play at noon.
Shout out to NoleFan.org. Again, just the most indispensable resource.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Corey's sitting there and pondering to himself as he's writing out the sort of story about what Willie had to say and looking ahead with the Clemson game, which is next week. Can't believe that. Being a noon game, Corey starts pondering, I wonder when's the last time Florida State played Clemson at noon at home. And I'm like, all right, let me check College Football Warehouse. Let me check College Football Reference, Wikipedia. And none of them show you the game time. I mean, nothing at all. And I'm like, I just kind of joked. I'm like, let me check NoleFan.org. I'm sure they might have it. Yes.
Yep.
Literally, they either have the cover of the program or they have the post-game notes that back in those days were like handwritten out. Like, it was just,
right.
It was a template that had like total yards, turnovers, and somebody would just manually handwrite in like 3 turnovers, 399 total yards. But on there, it also would show you like kickoff, temperature, attendance, and right there it showed like 12:06.
NoleFan.org, folks. Yeah. Obviously, War Chant is indispensable. That's your number one site for anything Florida State related. You want to get in the community, talk to people, kind of praise the coaching staff. That's War Chant's a good place to go for that. A lot of uplifting messages when they're 3-3. But also, NoleFan.org is probably number 2 on that list. Yeah. That thing is great.
That's incredible. I just can't believe, how do they get their hands on the game
Do all
notes?
schools have that, I wonder? Is there like a GeorgiaFan.org and a GatorFan.org? I mean, this is pretty – it seems like I don't think it's normal.
It's everything. It's basketball, it's
baseball, it's all of it. Indispensable.
Yeah, good folks over there. So, what do we know about Wake? Do we know? I haven't looked at scouting. They're not good, though, right? They fired their defensive coordinator in the middle of the year.
Yeah, their defense is bad. Their offense is pretty good. It goes fast. They have a freshman quarterback, I'm pretty sure. He's a true freshman. And they got a kid named Dortch.
Yeah.
Who's really good.
The receiver is really good. Yeah.
Really good. Like, he's a guy that, I'm just going to go ahead and pencil him in for 150 and 2 touchdowns. He's one of those guys. He's really good. Little shifty, like a Switzer type guy.
Right.
But I think he's better than Switzer.
Braxton Berrios, maybe.
A little Berrios action. And what's funny about that is normally when you compare receivers to white receivers, it's a white guy.
Yeah,
but that's not the case in this instance. No. But anytime, seriously, folks,
progressive and open-minded here on Wake Up War Chant.
Anytime you see a white college receiver catch like a 17-yard square in, and he's like, that might kind of reminds me of Julian Edelman. I don't know,
Chris
man.
Doring out there.
It's like Collinsworth. Good grief, McCaffrey. So So anyway, he's really good. And I can't remember if he played against them last year and then got hurt at the end of that game or got hurt at the next game. I remember them struggling with him last year, too.
I think he did get hurt towards the end of the game.
In that instant classic in Winston-Salem that Florida State came back to win in the fourth
Blackman
quarter.
to Tate. Is that what remember that one?
That's the poster, right?
Yeah,
that's the poster
right
that everybody
above my shoulder over here in the Midtown offices.
That's the poster that everybody got after the game. So, Wake's defense isn't very good, and what's pretty startling about this game when you kind of look at the last half of this season is this could be their last chance to move the ball, consistently on a football team.
Does Boston College got that good of a defense?
It's good enough.
Yeah.
Not great. It's not great, but when you look at, I think the next 5 are all top 40 defenses. They've only played one in the first half of the season.
Was it Miami or?
Yeah. So when you look at and they had 200 yards in that game. So when you look at the one top 40 defense they faced this year, although they scored 20 points offensively, and really scored 27 points, had a touchdown taken away, which we can talk about in a second. You didn't do great against Miami. You did okay, but that's the best defense you face. Now you're going to face 5 out of the next 6 with at least equal defenses and probably better. It's going to be hard to move the ball. So, folks, I don't know if you're planning on coming to the Wake Forest game. You should certainly watch it. But you really need to savor this bad boy and enjoy it. Win or lose, savor the fact that there will be first downs and yards gained, because I don't know that you're going to see a ton of that against Clemson, Notre Dame, NC State, etc.
4 or 5 years from now, we're not going to talk about the Wake Forest game in 2018, barring just some sort of catastrophic thing happen to somebody out there,
right.
Which hopefully won't happen, obviously. But, is Florida State not in any sort of position to need style points in a victory? Is it just at this point just get wins no matter what? Or do you want to see, should you expect as a fan, go see Florida State not be the way they were at their worst under Jimbo Fisher, when they would just not be able to beat teams they were, more athletically gifted than. I remember joking around, not even joking around with somebody asked me, after the Virginia Tech debacle, what I expected from Samford. I'm like, oh, they'll win that easily. I just want to see at least, 4 touchdown drives where they go tempo. So give me 4 touchdown drives where you go tempo and you're going at speed and you're connecting on everything, go bing, bang, boom. That's what I want to see. And obviously they weren't able to do pretty much any of that against Samford. So I don't know if I want to, can I expect the same thing 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later? Give us two good drives, just go out there and just show us what it can ultimately be? Or does none of that sort of matter? At this point, it's just survive and advance almost. And by advance, I mean somehow get to 500.
No, I think that's, last year they scored 26 against Wake Forest, including that last one with whatever it was, 4 or 5 minutes left, whatever that last touchdown was.
There was less than that. I thought there was like only a minute or 2 left when.
I thought it was more than that. I thought maybe they might have even gotten the ball back again. But anyway, so they scored 26 in that game. If you go score 40, 38, isn't that a positive sign?
Yes, for sure.
Last year they scored 24 against Miami. Or no, I'm sorry, they scored 20 against Miami. This year they scored 27, albeit with a punt return. Again, though, it should have been 27. Last year they scored 28 against Louisville. What did they score this year against Louisville? 28?
I think so, right?
So you're kind of looking at you just want to see you want to see the improvement. That'll matter. I think
53 seconds were left. It was griddled. We
really?
were deadlocked at 19 a pop, man. James Blackman, 40-yard strike to Auden
Oh, so it was
Tate.
tied.
Yeah.
It was tied. Okay, gotcha. For some reason, I thought Florida State was behind when that play happened.
So did I, but yeah, no.
So yeah, they had that offense last year had 19 points on them in the first 59 minutes of the game. So again, we're seeing a struggling offense, but we saw one last year. In fact, I looked it up. So last year against Power 5 teams, they played 10 of them. Florida State averaged 20.1 points per game. So far this season against Power 5 teams, and this is an if, But if you had counted the Virginia Tech touchdown that should have been.
Oh, jeez, we're going this way? Okay.
Well, if you had counted it,
Okay.
which it should have been. And I only say this because you're the number. And if you'd have counted the touchdown against Miami that should have been, they're averaging 20.1 points per game against Power 5 teams. It's the exact same production that we're seeing.
But on grass, in reality,
that's not. Well, it's like 18.8.
Okay.
But there's that's not ideal. You know, they were robbed of 11 points that they should have had. In my opinion, they were robbed. But so it's not. And 20.1 points is still not good at all. But I think we look at this offense and go and kind of say to ourselves, why is it so bad? And it's like, well, it was bad last year. There's a chance maybe they're just not good players. And obviously that goes for the dudes up front. And I think that when you talk about, okay, last year's team averaged 20.1 points per game. And that was a pretty easy schedule, all things considered, except for, Alabama. And then this year's team's averaging about the same. Well, what's the correlation? What's the connection? Well, it's those guys up front, man. Jimbo's offense didn't look good last year because of the dudes he had blocking.
But their running back still ran for over 1,000 yards with with plenty of time. I mean, how many yards did Cam end up running for? Like over 12? 14?
I thought it was like 1,000 something, like 1,007, 1,020, 40, something like that. But they also didn't throw the ball that much. They didn't have great, they didn't have anybody with 5 touchdown catches, I don't think, other than Auden Tate, who didn't play but half the season, or didn't play healthy but for half the season. I think they're better passing than they were last year. I mean, I think that happened. So part of that, obviously, is the quarterback. I think there's also a couple dudes that he gets to throw to this year that James Blackman didn't get to throw to last year, which helps. But I guess what you're looking for the next 6 games is a competent-looking offense. They don't have the horses to go put up 500 yards and 45 points. They just don't.
Even against Wake Forest.
Against them, maybe. But I'm saying, so if they go out against Wake Forest.
I don't think anybody's expecting 450 and 45 against Boston College or Florida.
I think if this thing can get rolling, if he can get what he wants in here, I do think that in a year or two, that will be the norm. I think 450 yards, 40 points against the NC States and Boston Colleges of the world. Against, Notre Dame and Clemson, that's always going to be a little difficult. But, this last 6 games, I just don't remember a stretch like this since I've been watching Florida State, where your last 5 games are against teams that are combined 28-3, and you're only 3-3 through the easy part of your schedule, and you haven't faced but one good defense, and now you're about to face 3 or 4 elite ones. It's gonna be a chore. So how are they going to look? Taking away the wins and losses, how are they going to look up front? How much better are they going to look? How much better is the offense going to look? Even if you have to watch it through the prism of, okay, it doesn't suck quite as bad as I thought. And that's kind of what this season's going to end up being. That's the prism you got to watch it through. It doesn't suck quite as bad as maybe we thought after the Syracuse game.
Man, that was a bad time. Yeah, again, I'm trying to go back to that third quarter DJ Matthews punt return against Miami. Or was it the fourth quarter when you pulled? It was third quarter. Yeah. They were just like, man, there's no way they're going to lose this game. Here they go. They're here. They've arrived. I mean, not that they were going to run the table after the Miami game, but you're like, all right, we got this one in the bag. You beat Wake Forest. Oh, what was it, 3-game winning streak right there, 4-game winning streak that you're on right there. Watch out. Here we go.
It would have been a really big win. It was so much. It would have been so much more. I don't even know how to phrase it. It would have been so much more important as a win than it was devastating as a loss.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that's kind of contradictory. It would have been such a big shot in the arm for this football team and this program to win that game. Because nobody really expected them to win it. And then for them to kind of blow it the way they did, I'm interested to see how they recover. But 4-2 right now going into Wake, when you're really staring at a possible 5-2.
Ooh, 5-2 sounds great.
5-2, you're on the cusp, honestly, of being ranked again. And you're on, what would you be on? You'd be on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a really, really big win, just for this team at this time. I still think the program is the program. He's either turning, I don't think in the grand scheme of things that loss will be a huge deal when we look back on Willie Taggart's time here. But it would have been, in the moment, it would have felt really, really big for the program.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about that game a little bit more in depth, I guess, or relate it back to what's going on now with Florida State. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Wake Up War Chant, all Noles, every day. Now back to Corey and Aslan.
Welcome back in, folks. He's Corey Maslon's Wake Up War Chant. A reminder, if you're not a subscriber to warchant.com, if you need any more incentive, which I don't know how much more you really need. You got Corey's columns, you got Ira's insight, Gene's insight, Michael Langston's recruiting analysis.
Your videos.
Yeah, the videos are right every now and then. You get a discount to Garnet and Gold. I think 10% discount to Garnet and Gold. It's only for War Chant subscribers. So check us out. War Chant 30 is a promo code. You get 30 free days. So think about it. I mean, it's even when you really break it down, it's less than I think $90 for an entire year subscription to War Chant. If you use that one free month, and then you only got 11 more months.
It basically pays for itself.
It does. It does.
And if you like this, if you like what we're doing here, you would love War Chant.
Mm-hmm.
It's this plus so much more.
Yeah, people with better opinions,
sure,
more pragmatic outlooks on things,
right,
sharing that with you.
More articulate.
Yeah. So speaking of articulate, man, Willie just really didn't get a good answer, it feels like, from the ACC in terms of whatever happened about the clarity that he was looking for in that Miami game with the double pass. Crazy thing here, too, is that we didn't mention on the program Monday. I mean, I don't know if you watched it against Virginia, but Virginia threw a forward pass, but it looked like it might have been a lateral. It might have looked like it was a backwards pass, but it was a forward pass. They called it on the field incomplete, but it was close enough that Miami wanted them to look at it. And I don't know the difference between it's a reviewable play and whether or not you can challenge it, but Miami called a timeout.
Yep.
They went to TV. They took a TV timeout, and when they came back, the crew was like, the ruling on the field stands, incomplete pass. So calling that timeout I don't know if it was because of the timeout or if they're going to go TV timeout, but that gave the booth the opportunity to look at that play once more and, make a ruling on it, where I think I don't know if that's people are complaining about that or not, but I'll still never understand why he just didn't at least call it time. I don't know if that's just being like obtuse or inobstinate, just the fact that they're like, no, we're not reviewing it, it's too close. I'd be like, well, screw you, timeout anyway. I mean, I don't know, I feel like I'd be so pissed off if I was Willie Taggart at that point. I would have called the timeout almost out of spite.
Here's what doesn't make sense to me. I was listening to a game, I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, on Saturday, after dropping Brady off, and I was, have the XM, have the satellite radio, so I'm listening to one of the games, and it says, and I swear the referee comes out and says the coach has challenged the ruling on the field. This was a Saturday game. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was an SEC game, but I don't remember which one. And so I start to think, okay, do SEC rules have different? Is the SEC rule different than the ACC rule? Since when do they get to challenge calls? I mean, is that allowed? I didn't know that you had.
I think if it's a conference game, I think there's certain rules that might take precedence.
So could Willie have challenged the call?
I don't think so, because that is not a challengeable play, if that's the word.
But it's a reviewable play.
They can review it. Like if the refs want to buzz up.
What's the difference? But anyway, I guess the point is that what Willie's point is, and your point about the timeout, I understand it. I understand why people wanted him to do more. But again, it wasn't like the Virginia-Miami game, because the Virginia-Miami game, they were getting ready to run another play real quick.
Right.
Florida State, literally, they celebrated in the end zone. They were running the PAT team out. And then you see the flag drop by the sideline. And by the time they were ready to snap the ball again, it had been a minute and a half. So, again, if you're a head coach, what's the point of the timeout? It's been looked at. And you've been told by the referee it's been looked at. So you're just going to call a timeout and get to the actual point of what we're talking about. Willie Taggart said that he did hear back from the ACC that number one, it was reviewed in the booth from multiple angles, and that there wasn't enough video to overturn the call anyway. That's what he heard. So if he's hearing that, then it sounds like it would have been a wasted timeout. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can look at that, the play in that game, and say that was a forward pass. I can see how you'd say it was a direct sideways pass.
It went lateral.
It went straight lateral, but there's no way that ball moved an inch forward. It just didn't. And for them to say that there's no video evidence to overturn it when they overturn stuff all the time, it just boggles the mind. But again, the ACC, quite frankly, doesn't ever really come out typically and say that their officials made mistakes. That's just not what they do. Occasionally, like if a referee scoots a ball forward during a measurement, or Nigel Bradham's kicked out of a game for what should have been a legal hit, they'll come out and say something like that after the fact. But quite frankly, normally they just stand by their decisions. I can't understand how they would have there. But anyway, I think they were robbed of a touchdown. You can't watch a review of that game and say that was 2 forward passes.
Yeah. What I'm reading on the internet says that on-field officials cannot stop the game to ask for a review. The review has to come from upstairs or by way of a coach's challenge.
So he says, they don't have a challenge flag, but they can come and say, I challenge that call.
Right.
But again, I think people hearing that would be like, okay, Willie, why didn't you challenge it? Why didn't you challenge it? Well, number one, if he was going to challenge any call at all this year, it would have been the Virginia Tech one. But he kind of screwed himself a lot by going tempo. Also, my man up in the booth could have buzzed down for that one too. We see it all the time.
Right.
Close calls like that, especially going into the end zone, where you see a replay and you're like, wait, did he get in? Wait, did he fumble? Let me look at this, because both were in play in that game, and they didn't buzz down at all. So he could have challenged, but he's now been told 3 different times, essentially, that it wouldn't have mattered, that there was not enough video evidence to overturn it. That's why he didn't even buzz down. So the fact that he had 90 seconds to buzz down and say, hey, we need to look at this again, and didn't, then you're just challenging for challenging's sake, and you're losing a timeout. You're burning a timeout.
Which I don't know, at that point, I almost doesn't feel like you're wasting it. So the thing, I know it might be, because remember in the NFL, if it was a fumble, but if they called the guy down, they couldn't go back and review it and say, actually, no, it was a fumble. That's why a lot of times they'll let the play live on in the NFL, because that allows them to review a fumble under rule if you actually let the play sort of play out. I think the fact that it was an actual penalty is probably what it was, because actually they threw the flag and called an illegal forward pass.
Right.
Now, had it been the other way, had that gone without a flag and been a touchdown, Miami could have then probably challenged him, like, well, wasn't that a backwards?
And that would have been a waste of they wouldn't have overturned that either.
Yeah. So,
but again, it's just in
why do
this
they?
day and age,
the thing is, what I'm trying to say on that is they shouldn't have thrown the flag on it.
Of course not.
If it's that close, don't throw a flag, because at that point it cannot be. The coach cannot challenge it. Like Willie Taggart cannot challenge it because it's a flag, it's a penalty. If you let that go on as it played out, that gives a chance to Mark Richt to challenge it.
Right?
Which is, I don't know. We're a Florida State show, so we're.
But then you hear what happened in the Pac-12 with the guy overturning calls,
like a targeting call that was
from the absolute targeting
just
from the booth. And then it's like, okay, well, we got to figure out what we're doing with these replay. What bothers me the most, and that's why I'm actually going to write about it, is just the inconsistency from game to game, from crew to crew, from play to play. There were 4 other plays in that Miami game that were challenged. We had to wait 3 or 4 minutes while they said, okay, did the tip of the ball hit the ground on that 8-yard pass? Was his arm going forward on the fumble? All those were reviewed, but this one, where the game hinged on it.
Yeah.
It hinged on it. Even if they came back and said the call stands, which would have been the wrong thing to do because it shouldn't have stood. Mm-hmm. But even if you say that the call stands because you don't have a camera view right on the line, not that that matters on touchdowns half the time, but anyway, you don't have a camera right on that 39-yard line or 44-yard line, we can't overturn it. At least fans would have known that you looked at it, that you really took the time to look at it because it was such a pivotal play, and they didn't even look at it. So just – the replay in sports in general kind of makes you shake your head sometimes, and then that one in particular, and also I think the biggest travesty was the Virginia Tech one, not even buzzing down, because there was a chance he fumbled too, and so Florida State maybe is trying to rush the line because they think that Nooney might have fumbled and they want to snap. Well, that's not. If he fumbled, go look at it. You have time. You had 12, 14 seconds. You've seen a replay. Buzz down immediately and look at it. Why are you so slow on the trigger?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I didn't want y'all to think that, okay, it was whatever it is, 9 days now later. Why are we still talking about it? It's just we hadn't gotten to talk to Willie since he heard back from the ACC. Yeah. So we wanted to ask because obviously the hurricane and there was no availability. So we wanted to ask what he had heard from them about that play. And it was that, they send in their viewpoint of it. The ACC answers and says, no, it was reviewed and that there wasn't disputable evidence to overturn it, which is nonsense.
And the crazy thing about that Virginia forward pass, backwards pass, incomplete thing against Miami, it was the second quarter. It was the second quarter, and Miami called a timeout.
Oh, I thought it was the last drive of the game.
No, that was they didn't review.
I thought they had another one. Kind of like that.
Well, that one was the actual second quarter. I'm like, wow. I'm like, a pivotal one in the fourth quarter. We're fine. We'll keep going. But the second quarter, no. We'll stop and look at it. The crazy thing with the Virginia-Miami game was, I think Virginia kicked a field goal to make it like a 6-point game or something. like with 30 seconds left, and Miami actually roughed the kicker.
Yeah.
And then the referee was like, 15-yard
they'll take
penalty.
it on the kickoff.
Yeah,
They'll take it
what
on
do
the
you mean they'll take it on the kickoff?
I feel like they wanted to end the game.
Yeah, it's an automatic first down, man. So that's what they did, man. So, all right. So that's buttoned up. We still don't know. I mean, I feel like even judging by Willie's response, I don't, unless Willie doesn't know how to tell us the jargon that he got from the ACC, I feel like he doesn't. He still doesn't know.
I think
what happened.
I think when I asked him about it, he was kind of just wanting to move on, not really talk about it much anymore. But I also think he's really irate about it, like privately, because he knows what that play was. He called it perfectly, perfect time. Again, Francois could have made it not nearly as close. He could have thrown it a little further back. But DJ could have lined up a little further back. But you're right. You can't be 6 yards back because then everybody knows something's up.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect play call, perfectly executed. Should have won them the game, and it was kind of taken away from them. And to not even review it, and what bothers me, I think, a lot, honestly, because I know this to be true. If this had happened at Doak, if that play had happened at Doak, and then they show the replay on the video board, and you hear 60,000, 70,000 people screaming and booing, they call down and review it. But because of where it was, maybe they didn't get that instant feedback in the stadium of, wow, that's really close, we need to review that. But I've just seen it. I've seen it since replay happened. The crowd matters. And Florida State didn't give them a chance to call down and review it for the Virginia Tech game until after the fact. But the crowd matters when it comes to that. And because it was in Hard Rock, maybe he just took a passing glance at it. Maybe he just looked at it once. We don't know. They won't really tell us. But they blew the call.
The mob is fickle, brother.
So, hey, by the way, I only bring this up because I tweeted about it last night. I mean, so at the end of the game, that Tyreek Hill play, he goes, I mean, that guy's crazy fast. It's an incredible fast. He's one of the fastest guys I've ever seen on a
Michael Ray
football field.
Garvin speed.
You ain't lying. Like Kenny O'Neal.
Yeah. Ooh.
Like K. O'Neal, like track star speed. You wouldn't have had a problem if he pulled that dude out of the stands, right, after getting a beer thrown at him?
Absolutely not.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah. Because I tweeted that, and people brought up his domestic violence past.
Oh, yeah.
It's like fair. He's
I'm
not
sure that's what that guy was saying. That guy was like
no, exactly
part of
right.
a
It was
domestic violence
sure.
shelter.
No.
And he's like, oh, this guy's, I'm going to get him
He's
back.
just a Boston ass, and but yeah, he wasn't doing it for anything other than he's just a Boston ass,
Masshole.
and a masshole. Yeah, but yeah, man, it's crazy, and I've talked about this before. I've even written about it once. That these fans, like, imagine if you see Tyreek Hill downtown Boston, and you go up and pour a beer on him. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to you?
Yeah. Oh, hey, man, you're preaching to the choir, friend.
But because you're in the stands, you're literally a foot from him. But because you have this partition in between you, he's in a uniform, you're in your Pats gear, you think that rules of humanity don't apply. Like the rules of society don't apply. You can do whatever you want and say whatever you want to him, and there are no repercussions. Just once. It's all it's going to take. And I'm not talking about crazy Ron Artest, because that was nonsense. Even then, don't throw beers at people. Right. But he went and punched the wrong guy. Like, he punched the guy that was just laughing at him. Yeah. And then that was not smart. But if my man pulls him out and just pile drives him, or just one to the sternum. Yeah. Just one solid NFL.
Headbutts him with the helmet on.
And who do you think you are that like you're in this bubble because you're a fan? You can talk or act any way you want, and the player just has to take it because he doesn't want to get fined.
It's the internet, brother. Everybody thinks that they're on the internet still.
Isn't that right? Like, that's crazy to think that you would go to a professional football player, and Tyreek Hill's stacked, man, and think that you could throw a beer at him and know that there's not going to be any repercussions.
Did you ever see Ty Domi? He was like a very famous hockey player, but mainly because he fought. And he was in the penalty box. In the penalty box, obviously, your back is to the and some guy climbed the glass and was like talking smack to him, and he grabbed him and pulled him down.
Yeah. But exactly right, man. Yeah. I mean, at some point, we're all. I know you think that we're in this safe space.
Come down here and say it to my face.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly right. How about that guy? He's challenging Jimbo to a fight. You wouldn't have done that on the street. He actually told him to get new coaches, which weirdly Jimbo, I think, took his advice after this season and got himself some new coaches. Isn't that amazing, Jimbo? Isn't that amazing?
Timing's funny. All right, let's wrap things. I'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Wake Up War Chant Low Carb Beer for the Seminole Soul. Back to Aslan and Corey.
Welcome back, everybody. Maslon, he's Corey. Wake Up War Champ. The quarterback is still DeAndre Francois. Ira asked as much last week, and Willie scoffed at it, laughed it off, like, you serious? People asking about that? But apparently, again, when we were out there Monday last week, James Blackman was taking all the reps that we were able to see, and it just kind of felt like maybe it was one of those, like, give the veteran the day off kind of thing. And then Tuesday, Francois resumed taking first-team reps and getting action during practice. We did not see anything on Wednesday, obviously, because they did not have practice. Apparently, I guess Willie said that they came back on Saturday and practiced Saturday and Sunday. So
right.
they got
those would have been normal days off. At least the Saturday for sure would have been a day off because they had played. The weekends of a bye week, kids usually get to go home. And so he says they practiced the same amount of time they would have even without the hurricane because they brought him back for those 2 practices over the weekend.
Yeah, so they got all that in. And I think Gene Williams kind of asked him if what did happen to DeAndre when he missed that one play in Miami, like when James Blackman had to come in. I don't even remember what happened to him.
I don't either.
But anyhow, so there was some rumbling that
was
maybe –
Was it a leg?
I think it was, yeah, because I think he ran and he got hit in the knee.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Like, oh, no, his knee. But Gene Williams, founder and administrator of WarChant.com, asked Willie about that, and Willie's like, no, he's good. And then that was that, and we kind of moved on. I think there was some rumbling. Maybe.
Said he practiced Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
so
there might have been something on the internet said that he was hurt or might not be available, but that does not seem to be the case. We'll probably get visual confirmation of him being back out there and practicing later today, and we'll let you know on the Wednesday program. But when we did the roundtable thing, the one thing was, how did we get to this point? How surprised are we that Florida State is here? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. A lot of people are angry at us, not like you or I, but I think maybe War Chant, maybe just the media at large, because we did talk in pretty positive, glowing terms about this team preseason and the fact that they're here now where they are. And it's like, well, you guys keep pumping all this sunshine. And, part of what my explanation is, going to the Alabama game last year, and I'm working in Alabama at that point. I'm going on radio every single day and talking about how Florida State's going to beat Alabama, not because I'm a Florida State alum, but just because the way I feel the game's going to play out. It's because Florida State's going to that game with a much better quarterback than Alabama had going into the game in 2017. They had Jalen Hurts, who would run the ball and then every now and then have a timely throw, but Florida State had a fully developed thrower of the ball, a passer of the ball, in DeAndre Francois, third year in the program. Nooney Murray emerged as a target late in 16. So that's kind of what I went by my basis where I thought Florida State was going to beat Alabama, was that they had the better quarterback. And then now the guy who won that game is benched, and the guy who lost that game and lost an entire year and really hasn't come back and built off what we saw in 16. So I guess, I don't know, 2 weeks off, the bye week, how much could we expect growth from DeAndre? Or is that simply who he is? Or what did Willie tell us in terms of what he hopes to see from, I guess, DeAndre in the last half of the 18 season?
Yeah, again, he's made it clear that he wants him to quit going to the back of his drop, the absolute back of his drop, and waiting to be tattooed by these defensive ends that his tackles can't block. DeAndre's got to help him out. I think that's what he's trying to get through to him. Is like, this isn't.
But you've gotten the crap kicked out of you what does Willie Taggart need to tell you? Yeah.
But for his whole career, he's gotten the crap kicked out of him. And part of that, again, it's laudable. He's a really tough kid that'll stay in as long as possible before making the throw, waiting and expecting, number one, that his lineman will block for him and that these receivers are going to eventually get open. But at some point, it has to be option one, like I'm talking about on a pass play. Mm-hmm. Back up, read one, read two. Neither's there, I'm taking off. It's just got to be that way.
Just throw it away, too. You can throw it away.
You can roll out. How many times this year have we seen him roll to one side?
I literally only can remember one. It was against Louisville, and he threw it away. It was like an incomplete pass. He actually rolled out and did a kick pass. He kicked his legs out and threw on the run.
Right.
The way you would see a quarterback usually execute a rollout pass. That's the only thing I can remember him actually really rolling out.
And I know he's wired, in the NFL, you don't do a lot of rollouts. You have to make your living in the pocket. The great ones do. He came to Florida State to go to the NFL. He came here to play for a coach that gets quarterbacks to the NFL. He knows what gets him there, and it's to be in the pocket, much like EJ. But talking about somebody that could run but didn't a lot at the tail end, at the end of his career. But at some point, man, you have to. There has to be some sort of synergy with what your line can do, and what you have to understand what they can and can't do and adjust accordingly. Again, he has stood back there like he's got Walter Jones and Trey Thomas on both bookends blocking these guys, and he doesn't. Would you think Walter Jones right now would be their best lineman?
I don't know. Alec Eberle graded really high according to Pro Football Focus last week against Miami, so I think.
Did he? So, but I think you think Walter Jones could start. He's what would he be now? So he was a 96 was his last year.
Scott.
So he's 43, 44 years old.
Oh, you mean like?
Oh, I didn't mean obviously the night probably like
smart Alec.
No, probably like
right now his age.
44-year-old Walter Jones played probably
old man strength.
15 years in the league.
I'll take old man strength.
Okay, he's not going to be, he's not going to have that burst. He's not
going
to
have the quick feet, but
right.
I think he'll
probably just grab guys and throw them down. Okay, that's an interesting thought.
And
though.
not get flagged, but yeah.
Jamie Dukes, he was a guard in like the mid '80s, so he's probably got to be in his early 50s now, maybe 53. I bet he would have a chance to play for this line. At any rate, DeAndre's got to make adjustments, and if he's not willing to make adjustments, Willie's got to do something about it because. Again, you're just not giving your team the best chance to succeed. So I just want to see him move. I don't care that if you run for 35 yards on a play. I don't expect that. Move your feet. Just move your feet and be an athlete. Go make some plays with your feet, even if it's just extending plays and avoiding sacks and throwing it away. That's a play. That's a play that helps your team. I'm not talking about avoiding plays and being a Winston and connecting for a 50-yard touchdown. Throwing it away sometimes is a really good play because when it's 2nd and 19, that's a wrap on the drive. He's got to get better at that because, again, all this is through the lens of you don't want them to suck too bad this season, but you're looking at 19. In my personal opinion, you just mentioned another quarterback, and I have no inside knowledge at all. But by God, if this thing still looks like this in November, where you're getting 200 yards of offense against these defenses and your quarterback is just a sitting duck not moving, I would make sure that dude in Tuscaloosa knows he has a place to play in 2019 because that guy will run the ball. And it's not probably fair to Francois or James Blackman for that matter, but if that's what it takes to get this offense moving is a quarterback that is run first. I mean, didn't Jalen Hurts rush for over 1,000 yards his first two both of his first two seasons? I mean, that's what he does. Yeah. He can't throw at all, really. He's not Francois is a much more gifted passer.
Much better.
But does that matter with this offense? Is that really correlated into big points and big yards? So I just can't envision a scenario where Jalen Hurts stays at Alabama. But unlike the kid at Clemson that just straight quit on his team, which he did. I mean, I know he's looking out for number one. That's great. He quit on his team. He could still be there saying, I'm not playing. Anyway, he straight quit on that team.
I'd hope you wouldn't let Brady rot on the bench somewhere and you'd let him go somewhere else.
What do you mean?
If Brady was like balling, Brady took the team, took Florida State to a playoff appearance, and then the next year they're like, we're going to place you the true freshman. I hope you'd be like, Corey, Brady, you can go. You can go.
For sure. To Georgia. But what I would say to Brady is you're gonna see this season out. You're not quitting in October. You're just not.
Such a dad move.
You're not quitting in October. You're not doing it. You're a part of this team. And if that kid gets hurt, what then?
What was Dabo not able to communicate him to? Like, listen, you do realize this kid can get hit at practice. He could slip down a flight of stairs. He could go and get hit by somebody from Syracuse on the sideline. He's out.
You're not using.
And then you're back in.
And you're not losing your eligibility for next season if you're on the sidelines. Right. If you're dressed out on the sidelines, you're not losing anything. You can still redshirt. You've played in 3 games. You can still redshirt. We will look out for you. We will not play you unless we absolutely have to play you. But if we are playing you, it's to help these guys that you've been with teammates with for 4 years try to win a championship. So, like, if Lawrence sprains his ankle and is out for 3 weeks, well, Kelly Bryant gets to play for the number 2 team and gets to be the quarterback for the number 2 team in the nation for at least 3 weeks.
And if you play really good, then you maybe hold on to the job.
But even if you don't, to me that's more rewarding than transferring to SMU or North Carolina or wherever he's going to go and go play for a 3-9 team next year, but you get to be a quarterback. Great, man. You could be the starting quarterback for a team that wins a championship, even if it's just for 5 games. It's just crazy. It just boggles the mind, that decision that he made, because, number one, Kelly Bryant ain't going to the NFL. And hopefully I'll be smart enough with Brady to understand, okay, this isn't really hurting his college. This isn't hurting his pro prospects. He's not a pro quarterback.
Well, remember Cardell Jones from Ohio State? third-string quarterback, won the national title, comes back the next year, was not the starting quarterback, still ended up in the end. He's still holding a clipboard somewhere getting a check.
Was he not? Who was the starter? Was it Braxton Miller?
Braxton Miller and then
I thought
JT
they moved
Barrett.
Braxton Miller to the wide receiver and let Cardell be the
No, I think JT Barrett. JT Barrett was the starting quarterback.
It was hard to tell. They were interchangeable.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, so I think, man, throw out everything whether you think it's a right move or a wrong move, or whether you think I'm being an old school dumb thinking that Kelly Bryant quit on his team.
Garnet and gold only.
If you had your choice between those two guys to come into your program,
right.
The guy that stuck it out at Alabama,
right,
or the guy that quit in October, not quit like Bailey Hawkman did, and Bailey Hawkman quit, but at least he did it in August. This kid quit.
Showed some foresight.
This kid quit in the middle of a season, and then the very next week, the guy gets hurt. And he's out. What was he doing in his apartment watching?
How did nobody get I didn't see any quotes or anything from. I would have figured if you worked in South Carolina, like you would have gotten a quote out of Kelly Bryant after that happened.
They talked to someone, maybe the backup that had to come in because Kelly Bryant wasn't there, and I think he said he hung out with Bryant that night and celebrated the win. So Bryant was still in town, still hanging out with his teammates. But he wasn't there for the game that he could have helped them win by. They were lucky to win that game. If they had Kelly Bryant, maybe it's a much easier game. And then anyway, but so I don't know. I'd like to see these next 6 weeks going back to Francois if he can do it. And you don't have to be Quentin Flowers or Mariota. You don't have to be a great runner, but you have to do some stuff with your feet. You can't be Drew Bledsoe, and that's what Francois has been through 6 weeks. He's straight up Drew Bledsoe. He doesn't run. He averages 4 yards a carry on non-sacks. He just sits there in the pocket. He makes great throws when he has time. That last half of that sentence is the qualifier, though. And until he has linemen that can give him time, I don't know what I would think they'd welcome somebody like Jalen Hurts with open arms after next season. By the way,
arms wide open.
What was Nick doing last year keeping Tua on the bench? How do you watch that guy in practice every day and say, nope, the other guy gives us the best chance to win? That guy is one of the best college quarterbacks there's probably ever been.
Oh, easy. Come on.
I'm telling you, dude, that guy is nuts.
He's really good. He's really good. I mean, let's talk about the best quarterbacks ever. Relax.
Does he have an interception this year?
I don't think so. Actually,
that's
you know what's funny?
part.
You know what's really funny? They can still redshirt their punter.
Oh, yeah, because exactly, man. I mean, it's just crazy how good he is. And I know he's got two really good receivers and, running backs and the line, the whole thing. But, man, he is an impressive – They're
going to break all of our records from 13, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, what is it, 94 touchdowns? I don't know what they have right now, but Florida State scored 94 touchdowns that year, which is still a crazy number. But Jameis would still make the crazy – he made unbelievable plays in 2013, and he was incredible. But there were still maybe a couple plays a game where you're like, what was that? What was he thinking there? What was he looking at there? That was a risky, not smart move. This guy doesn't ever do that. To me, it's like all the positive of Jameis without the couple negative plays he would make each game where he would just force something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched enough of them to see, like, man, he doesn't come close to making bad decisions.
Well, it's just good to see something positive happen to Nick Saban and the Tide,
Yeah, I mean, that's they had to deal with a loss last year, a lot of adversity there. Almost had to go to overtime in a championship game. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing.
I think
didn't even win their division in the conference. Didn't even win their division. Had to overcome a lot to prove that they're still Alabama.
Apparently, going into the Clemson game in the playoff, if that game was going to get close, they were going to put Tua in. Apparently, that's what they said, like in the lead up to the national, or after even the national title game happened. That the plan was that if Jalen struggled against Clemson, they were going to go to Tua. But they were never in jeopardy of that game. They dominated Clemson the entire game, so they just kept rolling with them from then on out. And then obviously the first half did not look good against Georgia, and that's when Tua time.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, you're surprised why didn't he play in the Iron Bowl or something like that? I don't know.
Might have helped. Probably might have helped a little bit. Probably would have helped in Atlanta against Florida State.
You can break them before you make them, Corey. You can break these quarterbacks before you make them. You got to let them, learn slowly, bring them along, and then once they're finally ready, week 16, boom, deploy, boom, fire it off. Hey, before we go, real quick, so as a guy who likes James Blackman, don't even know James Blackman personally, but just the way he carries himself, I still don't know, like, how do you sell to, you don't have to sell to people, but like, so why is he not Like, what would he do, you think, that it's worth looking at him if DeAndre keeps struggling? Is it just one of those, well, you might as well?
Yeah, kind of like what do you have to lose kind of thing. Like if it's going to look like this with him, maybe it just clicks with him in a game where it doesn't practice. The truth of the matter is he's not better than Francois. I don't even know if I don't think he's a better option than Francois. I do think his teammates like him a lot, and I do think that matters a little bit. Not a lot, but it matters a little bit. And I think maybe just sometimes you need, sometimes there are starters in Major League Baseball games that struggle. That doesn't mean they're bad pitchers. They just have a bad game. Sometimes you can't find it. And I've been really surprised in a couple of these moments, a couple of these games, at Louisville especially, and then it turned out to be the right move, that he hasn't even thought about going into a relief pitcher. And that's what I would consider Blackman. Like sometimes Tyler Holton struggles a little bit. Maybe he can only get you through 4 innings. Then you go to a relief pitcher. Maybe he's better that day. He's just not if you have an option like Blackman who has so much game experience, it's been I guess there was really no reason to do it in the Miami game. You certainly weren't going to put him in the middle of the fourth quarter at that point. But I do think you want to see there has to be some accountability when it comes to Francois if he's going to continue to do what you tell him not to do. If he's going to continue to just stand back at the drop, not pull it and run, which Willie has told us multiple times is what he's told to do, that at some point maybe you put somebody back there that will do that. I don't know that it would help, but maybe it would help DeAndre to see somebody else do it, a play or two with it. Charlie Ward got pulled a bunch in 92, a bunch for a true freshman. What I'm more interested in with Blackman is, again, I wouldn't have any problem with him leaving after this season, especially if they brought in a Hurts or somebody like that, or the Howell kid looks like he's going to be a player. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't quit. Like he stayed with these guys. And then after this year, if it's not working out, he could and this is a redshirt year for him, man. He hadn't played it down. He's played one down.
Yeah, one snap.
So he's still got a red shirt. But he comes out to practice every day. I get people just don't know. They don't know because they're not at practice just how much life he gives that team and how much he does seem to be really liked and how much he cares. In fact, I don't know if I brought this up after the game or not, but walking off the field because of the way Miami does their stupid stadium construct, whatever they do with these college football games, I know they don't do it in the NFL. Both teams go to the same side of the stadium to leave the field. Yeah. So Florida State's trying to get out of the field. Miami's coming over to celebrate with their students who are on the same side of the field while Florida State's trying to go. And, of course, there's words being exchanged. And Blackman was about to take off his helmet and fight 3 Miami dudes, including Gerald Willis. Correct. And had to be pushed away. Yeah. I'm just the guy bleeds it. He does, man. This is his team. These are his teammates. He really cares, and I'm not saying that the other guy doesn't. But this guy's been a good Seminole, just like Sean McGuire was. And if I just wonder what it would look like with him. Yeah. But obviously, the guys that get paid a lot of money, he wasn't the starter last year either until Francois got hurt. And now Taggart chose Francois over Blackman too, so that's 2, pretty successful head coaches in the grand scheme of things that especially on offense, that have chosen Francois over Blackman. So that tells us that Francois is the better quarterback. But sometimes offenses just need a new look, a shot in the arm, and maybe just for a series or 2.
This is crazy. Like I know it's Southern Miss, but like if you look at his stat line, if you actually look at the film of the way he played against Florida, and then sandwiched between those 2 games, obviously it was Louisiana Monroe. But it's crazy that like he did all that. Yeah. And he just can't see the field.
And he was terrific against Florida. He got really let down.
His stat line looked terrible,
but bad. That was his receivers were dropping.
He played
everything.
really well.
He was really good. That was by far his best game of the season. So he was coming on at the end of the year, and and now he's a backup. And so again, is he going to want to sit next year behind DeAndre? Right. Or is he going to? I totally get if he wants to make that move. I don't like the kids that bail in August, and I certainly don't like the kids that bail in October. So.
I mentioned in the roundtable thing with obviously I don't think James is anywhere near as explosive as like Jalen Hurts or anything, or maybe he's a little bit more explosive than DeAndre, maybe even a little bit less. But like it's DeAndre's only 2 or 3 plays of keep it on the RPO or roll out here and make some more yards instead of sitting there and getting sacked
or pull it. Read.
He's 2 or 3 plays per game away from, I think, really altering the way teams have to play Florida State. And then that would open up so many more things for them offensively, i.e. the running game. I think that's maybe the one thing you can kind of cling on if you think, you're going to do a change just for change's sake. Is like, man, maybe Blackman just makes that 2 handoffs in a 60-minute, 70-play game, makes 2 more or keeps it twice more than DeAndre would, and that's going to affect the way teams are going to play them next week. And then maybe Cam Akers doesn't have to, keep dancing around, running east to west, try to find a hole, and something's going to open up.
Yeah, whatever it is, you just got to hope your quarterback keeps the ball. I mean, did you see the Michigan game?
Yeah,
that kid had an 86-yard run.
Woo. He's really athletic though, man. He is,
but he's not worlds more athletic than Francois.
Yeah, I think he's health-wise. I mean, I just think DeAndre, man, he just I don't know, just the knees.
But okay,
so
right. Say that I think he got caught at the 3, right?
Yeah.
He didn't get all the way in.
DeAndre probably bust that for like 45.
That's
or 50.
what I'm saying. But that in itself is enough. Even if it's 26 yards down the sidelines, that's enough to make a defensive end have to readjust, or a linebacker have to shift towards you because you might keep it. But when you never do, the whole defense funnels to the guy you're handing the ball to every time.
But he's a smart kid. At what point are you not in film study and they're not telling you, listen, man, like if you would have kept it there. I mean, this is week 6. We're going to the 7th game of the year. Like, if we don't see it now.
They've got a week off. They got a chance to reset. He made some plays in the Miami game. He did. Maybe he comes back and lights up Wake Forest to the tune of 31 points and 382 yards.
I can't wait for the over-under, man. I can't wait for the over-under on
that's
that
right.
one. It's going to be
right.
good times. All right, we're done. That was a really long show.
That was way too long a show.
I felt good about that. Whatever. All right, he's Corey Maslon. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll reconvene tomorrow.